I'm going to say this right out of the gate, and it may not sit well with some of you. Pinot Noir is responsible for the greatest wines in the world. It's also responsible for some of the most dull, drab, god-awful wine that I've ever tasted. In this video, I'll talk a bit about why Pinot Noir is so difficult to work with. I'll provide some tips that can be helpful when you're out shopping for the wines, including a tasting of two extremes and a third example from a place that you're probably not thinking of. First off, Pinot Noir is a fickle grape variety that is difficult to grow. It's thin-skinned and it's susceptible to all sorts of vineyard diseases. But when all the pieces come together, the wines can be amazing and they display a sense of place like no other variety in the wine world. But for this to happen, it requires uber attention in the vineyard, and a key part of this comes down to the old real estate adage of location, location, location. Second, maybe call this 2A. Pinot Noir grows best in cool climate regions where it rides a fine line of reaching ripeness. It's highly susceptible to excessive heat. Too much warmth ruins the aromatics, craters the acidity, and leaves the wine flat and lifeless. And then there's 2B. It performs best in well-drained, nutrient-poor soils. Yields are important. If it's cropped at too high of a level, it loses its aroma and complexity, much more so than most other grape varieties. Third, the wine world is heaped with Frankenstein Pinot Noirs. The color should be like this example, pale red with some fade at the edge of the glass. With few exceptions, if you see a deep, dense, saturated color, it's often due to some sort of winemaking alchemy, like color extracting enzymes or blending the wine with darker color varieties that can easily overrun the character of Pinot Noir. In some cases, detectable sweetness is used to mask flaws, but in turn, this creates a whole host of other problems. Even though Pinot Noir is often characterized as a more delicate style of wine, it can have a good affinity with oak. More commonly, it's aged in older oak or with lower amounts of new oak. And the wines can have very good aging potential. The best examples can go for decades. It's all about the right vintage, vineyard location, and winemaking technique. A key issue with Pinot Noir is adequate acidity. This helps to provide the wine with its longevity. I'm not a fan of using a different wine glass for each type of wine, but with Pinot Noir, a broad bowl glass is needed to capture the full range of the aroma. Shopping for Pinot Noir is not easy, and whatever the currency, the top Pinots won't be cheap and the supplies will typically be limited. This is where we get back to location or place of origin. In general terms, wines from the broadest place of origin will be the least interesting and the least expensive. As the place of origin gets more specific, this is where things get really good, but it also comes with a higher price. I wish there was a surefire rule to share here, but it really comes down to doing some research. The first wine up is the 2023 Le Grand Noir Pinot Noir from the Languedoc region in the southern part of France. The vineyards are in the foothills of the Pyrenees. The vines are about 10 years old. This is a wine that has good international availability. It comes under a screw cap. In the US, it sells for about $12. This is a good start. The color is pale red with just a bit of fade at the edge of the glass. The aroma has some red fruit character. There's a bit of a strawberry and cherry characteristic, more of a mid to mid-low intensity. There's some nice freshness with the fruit, though. The fruit does smell ripe, but there's also some alcoholic heat. And checking the back label, this wine checks in at 13% alcohol, so more of that mid-range, but there is a little bit of that heat on the aroma. It's a bit off-putting. You can tell there's not much, if any, oak at all in this wine. It's really more of a primary fruit-driven style of wine. I'm not getting anything that's really savory or nuanced. It's a very straightforward, simple sort of character. On the palate, there's nice weight here. The fruit actually is rather ripe. There's nothing green or lean about it. That red fruit character does follow through. There's a bit of that alcohol on the back palate. Again, the influence of oak here is minimal. The acidity is just at a moderate level. I think a little bit higher would give the wine a little more lift, a bit more freshness. But all things considered, the wine is actually well made. There is nothing that is flawed or wacky or off about it. It's just a very simple, straightforward style. Now, I would call this more one-dimensional. It's more of that broad market commercial style. I think the wine is actually decent. It's okay, but there is nothing about this that's compelling. There's nothing that would really drive me back to pick this wine up. And I'm certainly not going to say that this wine is some sort of fantastic value. It's certainly not. I think this is a good example of Pinot Noir being produced in an area where maybe it's not the best fit, but there is a skilled hand in terms of making the wine. The wine just lacks any sense of place. It doesn't have anything that makes it very distinctive and interesting. But again, the price on this is not all that high. If you've not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing it right now. Hit that like button and definitely hit that notification bell as well. That way you'll be kept up to speed on all things happening here. These things very much do help to grow my channel. It's much appreciated. Next wine up is the 2022 Albert Morot Beaune Les Bressandes. This is a benchmark standard from Beaune from a top vintage. The wines are all estate bottled and have been since the 1890s. As is often the case in Burgundy, individual sites tend to be very tiny plots. Morot has 8 hectares of vines, all organic, all Premier Cru, total production of around 40,000 bottles. It's sold on a limited basis in international markets. Your best bet is to check online. I paid around $80. The color has a medium deep youthful appearance with some fade at the edge of the glass. At this point, the wine has been open about 15 minutes, and I've given the glass a lot of action here to try to aerate it. Now, in terms of the aroma, this is really promising. There is that red fruit character. The fruit is ripe. It's that strawberry, cherry characteristic. There's a savory component. There's something here that is slightly reminiscent of truffle. There's a little bit of an earthy note here as well, but there's this polished, refined character. Nice intensity as well. I've got a feeling this wine will very much develop with additional time. This is a really promising start. So the good story just carries through to the palate. The wine is weighty, full, it's dense. The fruit has a high degree of ripeness, but there's nothing clumsy about it. There's an elegance, a refinement, very typical of what you'll find with wines from Beaune. Now, in terms of the acidity, it's rather lifted. The oak character is just playing a bit of a supporting role. It's savory, a bit of that truffle note certainly does follow through. Very good length on the back palate. The structure here leads me to believe this is a wine that could easily age another 10 years. And I think it actually will benefit and improve with that time. I think the wine is beautiful from start to finish. It has a true sense of place. And when you talk about wines having that it factor, or drinking a wine in Technicolor, something that just really is compelling and draws you back for another sip, this is it. This wine is absolutely stunning, and this is a classic example of what it should be. And lastly, something that's probably not top of mind, 2022 Silver Heights Pinot Noir from the Ningxia region of China. This is an area that's not all that far from the Mongolian border. It's certified biodynamic, they use wild yeast, it's not filtered, production is small. It's sold in a number of export markets. I paid around $40. The wine is slightly hazy with a pale red color. Over the course of my recent travels, I came across a wine that was very interesting. I thought it would be a perfect fit for today's video. That's how this wine from China came to be. I actually picked it up while I was traveling in Malaysia, which is where I'm at right now. Now, with Chinese wine, I've had some experience with this, and I've been to China a handful of times over the years, but over the last 5 years or so, the improvements there have really been quite dramatic. And this particular producer has gotten a fair amount of international play. Now, in terms of the aroma, there is a red fruit character, no doubt about that, the characteristic that is very common with Pinot Noir. But in addition to that, there is something here that's a little minty, maybe even a bit like a menthol sort of characteristic. This is not something I think of with Pinot. maybe more so with some of the Bordeaux grape varieties, but that's certainly evident. Oak is a very subtle part of this wine. There's no alcoholic heat here whatsoever, and the wine checks in at just 12% alcohol. On the palate, there's some good presence here. The wine certainly is not weighty or dense or very full. It's more that elegant style. That red fruit note is certainly there, a little savory component, but that minty menthol character really does carry through to the palate as well. The acidity is just at a moderate level, maybe a little bit higher, would give the wine a little more freshness and vitality. The back palate, there's just medium length to it. Tannins are really quite soft. And the oak here is, again, very much a background player. There's really very subtle oak influence in this wine. It's really quite interesting. And I wouldn't say the wine is sensational, but it really does draw you in because it's different and you look at this and think what the potential can be. And I'm sure over the coming years, the quality of the wines coming out of China will improve tremendously. So trying some of the wines that are really the strivers in today's market for them is really a lot of fun. If you see this wine, I would suggest pick it up if you're looking for something very different and off the beaten path. At this point, I'm going to retaste the first two wines. First one, it's been open maybe 40 minutes or so. It smells exactly like it did when I first opened it. Yeah, there's nothing offensive about this. There's nothing off or odd about it. It's just kind of a dull, meh, not all that interesting sort of wine. Oftentimes, this is what you're going to find in that $10, $12 or less price range with Pinot. Now, if you know some example that you feel is absolutely outstanding, I'd love to hear from you. And as always, I appreciate the comments, any questions. I try to follow up on each and every one. As for me, I'll be drinking the Burgundy tonight. I think the wine is absolutely stunning, and I'm sure it's going to develop. The aroma is just gone from good to better, and it's nudging up to best. I absolutely love the way this smells. Yeah, this is going to be a good night. The wine is absolutely outstanding. As always, thank you very much for supporting my channel. I hope you're drinking something interesting tonight, and please stop back again before too long. Cheers.